Our first talk today is a fireside chat with Valeria and Mor. They are going to be walking us through the retargeting success of Huuuge Games. Hey,
Hi
Mor.
guys.
Great.
Yay,
How are you?
welcome.
Yeah, sorry for the last minute technical issues, but now we're here.
Glad we have you.
Nice.
All
Good
right,
being
I
here.
will pass it off to you two. We're all excited.
Thank you so much for the support here. So, great. With some suspense, but it's nice as well to start like that, right?
Yes.
We can start the fireside chat. So I will start with a very short introduction. I'm Valeria. I work as a content manager at REMERGE. REMERGE is the very first custom-built platform for in-app retargeting only. And today I have the pleasure to be here with Mor Stone from Huuuge Games. I would like maybe more you to introduce yourself and
Yes.
to tell us what you have been doing at Huuuge Games. I'm sure everyone knows Huuuge Games anyway in this audience, but it would be very nice to hear from your point.
Great. So first, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. So a little bit about myself. I've been in this industry of marketing and gaming in the past 5 years. Started as a social user acquisition in gaming-focused companies. Joined Huuuge a little bit, around 2 years ago. Started as a social user acquisition manager for our flagship app, which is Huuuge Casino. And for those who are not really familiar with Huuuge, briefly about Huuuge, we're a free-to-play game developer and publisher. Our mission is to empower billions of people to play together. We have 12 offices worldwide, and we're constantly growing. And in Huuuge, I'm actually, in the past 8 months, I was co-establishing the retargeting team. Which we find a very strategic team in Huuuge. And by strategic, I mean that Huuuge understands the value of retargeting and is willing to invest much efforts and budget to this activity. And by leading the team, I'm in charge of bringing back Huuuge players to play our games by finding them all around in multiple channels all across the mobile scape, and bringing them back by offering them rewards and presenting them with new features and game experience. And that's mostly it.
Great, thank you. You were mentioning actually that it's been a journey in the last 8 months, let's say. It is building up a retargeting department as well, right? So actually, when did it become relevant to do retargeting for Huuuge, and based on which considerations on your side?
So I say it's more than a point in time. It's a point in data. I mean, we realize that it's something that we see across all gaming, that the retention day 7 can be around 10 to 15%, meaning that around 90% of new players who just installed leave the game in the first 7 days since install. So these for us has represented a big potential for our business. And we know that we can actually offer them another experience because they probably haven't experienced all the features that we have to offer and all the game experience. So we know that by applying a user-centric approach, we can make them maybe part of them loyal, huge customers by offering them some different game experience. Also, we've done an analysis. We wanted to look at the probability of a player to organically play the game after X days since his last login, since he last played the game. And this helped us to define the churn term. And churn term means after X days, this player is a churn player. I mean, he's not gonna come back to the game. And this helped us also in the retargeting activity. And another reason is, as we know, our games have a significant DAU. And while you have so many people that are playing your game, it's getting harder and harder to bring back players who haven't heard of our games and haven't played our games. And also, it's getting more expensive sometimes than really bringing back a player who actually knows you and played your game. And the social casino, we know that they have a long shelf life, high LTV users. And if we can bring them back to our games and give them a different experience, we can definitely benefit from.
That's great to hear. And I mean, like you were mentioning as well, how it can be cheaper to actually re-engage a user or prevent that the user churns instead of acquiring new users, right? Also probably related to the maturity of the games that you are dealing with, you are managing, right? So at the moment, for example, for the most mature games that you have, what would you say is the split in the investment between user acquisition and retargeting?
So regarding the split, okay, so we don't only do retargeting activity for mature games. We also run retargeting for our sometimes our new apps. So I mean, it depends on depends on the campaign type. So if it's a ROAS campaign, so that's what we're measuring, day 7 ROAS. We also look at other metrics, but that's mostly it. It's mostly meant for our large user base games that we know that drive most of our revenues, but we also run DAO campaigns, which are being measured by the amount of DAO, by the cost per DAO, and by retention. This is also for games who are relatively new, not a large user base, and also games that are based on in-app ads monetization. So that's how we split also between the apps and between the UA. I mean, I can say that retargeting is constantly growing and constantly keeping up and increasing its share among the marketing team. And it's definitely a very respectable share by now because, as you said, the majority of the games.
Mm-hmm. So actually, you were also mentioning a little bit the main lines of what is your retargeting strategy, right? When you talk about ROAS, for example, KPIs rather than your DAO activities. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more regarding your retargeting strategy and what is actually the goal of the different segments that you are running for the games?
Yes, so we discussed the campaign types, and we also have our audience segments and audience types. Sometimes, I mean, so it can be a segment of LTV and recency, meaning players who have $100 LTV, for example, who played 30 days ago, and we want to bring them back to the game. But it can be also audiences of players who engaged with specific features, players who for example, participated in big sales. We know that they're more likely to purchase during such sale, and we want to present them with a specific other sale that could suit them. And also another audience could be clubbers. We have clubs in our games, and we want to turn players who didn't join a club to join a club and actually get more rewards and play with their friends in the clubs and get more socialized in the app. So we have many audience types. That's our strategy along with the campaign types. And we want to make sure that we deliver the right message, as we said. Right message is the right promotion or thing that they could find interesting. And the right treatment. For example, players who didn't play for 60 days, we know that we should give them some reward or gift to help them get going and start playing the game. It can be a protocol of gifts every day, something else to make them like more loyal and keep playing for longer periods. So, I mean, yes, it depends on that. And I would say one word about measurement, because that's also part of our strategy. We have our Uplift dashboard, our internal Uplift dashboard that helps us to actually measure the incrementality, because we know that especially for targeting, players that you target could have anyway maybe perform an action because sometimes they're active or recently active players. So you really want to measure the incremental value, the actual value of the spend, the retargeting activity. So we have our own groups of test group and control group. And that's how we can truly measure players who've seen our ads versus players who didn't see the ads and know the incrementality value of our ads. And one last thing, so I would say that the eventual goal of Huuuge across the marketing team is to define where the next dollar would go. So it could go to retargeting, or it could go to UA. So that's why we also compare our activity with the UA activity, and that's eventually where we want to be.
Great. So if I understood it correctly, it's a very data-driven approach, what you have in place for Huuuge Games. And then like you try to address the different segments with a very customized messaging as well. And in terms of measurements, of course, there is the classical return on ad spend rather than engagement, but you are trying as well to estimate what is the uplift. So you mentioned actually the very hot topic of the last 2 years. Very interesting to see that also Huuuge Games is working on this internally. I think it's a very key topic at the moment. And also related to the other question that I had for you today, that is regarding what is the value actually of running more channels, multiple channels as well, on the same user base at the same time. If you can tell us something about it.
Yeah, sure. So I know, I guess that most companies that run retargeting use Facebook as their major source. And Facebook is indeed a great partner and to run retargeting campaigns, but I would say that unlike UA campaigns where you really rely on Facebook's sophisticated targeting and optimization, which I would say that there's no other like that. But for targeting, we have a predefined list. We have our list that we extract from our own database, players who actually played the game before. And for predefined lists, I would say that DSPs become super relevant because we eventually want to find these players and offer them new things. And Facebook, we can say that the match rate is around 65%, sometimes 70%, but we have all the other 30% and even more that we can reach via DSPs all across the mobile space and offer them what we want to offer. And it can also be more cost effective because we know that Facebook being a great platform is usually more expensive. We can pay less for the same users and even maybe target them in a sometimes a better user experience, because if they currently playing another game in another mobile app and then REMERGE show them some ad of our game, and so that makes them more likely to come back and play the game than sometimes when users scroll the Facebook feed and not currently looking to engage with any game, but just scroll and they're not open-minded that they are if they play another game or being in another mobile app. So that's, but I would say that eventually we want to diversify our risk. So we run with both, but we compare them. And once we have the uplift dashboard, that would be even a better comparison. I mean, we're not currently comparing partners, but we will, because then we can like divide the audience to some. But this is being shown on REMERGE, this is being shown on Facebook. We'll see the uplift of these two partners.
Sure. So the most important thing is to reach your users, also considering most probably that social casino apps, I mean, is a very competitive field, right? So you really need to reach your users and to keep them engaged in the game. When it's about choosing a retargeting partner, let's say, what would you say are the most valuable features or aspects for a strong partnership?
So I would say the first one is scale. When we onboard a new partner, we really invest our efforts and our budget to the success of this partnership. We want to make sure that this partner has enough access to inventory that we can scale the activity together, and the partnership could long last. And that reminds me of a Warren Buffett. He said, you know, our favorite holding period is forever, and that's what we aim for our partners. We say that our partnership with our partners is meant to be forever, and that's what we want. And when a partner can scale, definitely that can last for a long time. Another thing is communication with their POC, because we know that sometimes beginnings aren't so smooth. There's sometimes integration issues, or initial results are not as you expect them to be, and you need more time. So being in touch with a POC who is proficient, analytical, professional, and communicative, which is also very important because we need him to be available for us. So that's super important for us. And we find that a key a reason to stay with partners. And the last thing, if I should give 3 reasons, would be the reputation in the industry and the added value that they can bring to us. So we do also sometimes consult with our friends in the industry about partners and reputation. It can be performance, or there can be their bid optimization by segment and AI solutions, but it can be also the added value that they bring, which is advanced analytics. It can be creative innovation, creative personalization, and things that we can learn from our partners. So we're always looking to learn new things, and that's also a reason to choose a partner.
Great, thank you. Maybe a very last quick question before having a look at the questions that the audience just wrote us. What would be your advice for app marketers that want to approach retargeting for gaming?
Yes, so the advice would be to start the journey by coming out of the data. So we want to first understand the game from a data point of view. We want to understand our players. We want to look at metrics like cohorted, payers rate, ARPDAU, RPPU. We want to know at what point they usually make a purchase, or at what level they get stuck, or at what point they leave the game. And so that's one thing, and that would take great communication with the BI team. And not only also with product and CRM teams, but mostly BI team want to be very sync between the retargeting and BI teams, because everything must be backed by data. And another thing, which is also, I mean, when you do retargeting, you should really know your game. I mean, I've done UA for the same game, Huuuge Casino, but I didn't know the game as well as I know it now. I did play the game, and obviously I knew the features, but now I really know all promotions and events and everything that's going on in the game, because we have to communicate that to our players, and we have to understand what they like better and what makes them like excited. So also communication with the CRM team, the monetization team of the app is very important, because they're in charge of the game promotions and the events. And last advice, I think I already said that. So look for incrementality testing, especially for retargeting. The uplift dashboard helps us to really understand the incremental value. So that would be most. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have maybe still a couple of minutes for some questions. The first one, I mean, would need way more than a couple of minutes, because it's asking about the retargeting strategy with iOS 14.
Sure. So we got a little time now, which is great, because it was
Indeed.
pretty sudden, right? Because and we thought about what we can do. So there's various things that we started doing, which is, so we want to not rely solely on IDFA, because there are more IDs and identification which we can find players, especially on Facebook. We can collect emails, we can collect Facebook IDs, and we already do so in our game. We offer players some benefits in order to leave their emails and connect via Facebook IDs, and we have more plans going forward. And also looking to increase our consent rate, our opt-in rate. So that's another test we will run soon, pop-up message to really test and measure the consent rate. That's mostly it. We know that retargeting will get a little hurt from that, but we will find solutions definitely.
Sure, it will be something to learn how to deal with, right? So, another second question: how important is push notification in comparison to paid retargeting ad?
So as we said, the CRM team, that's also the team that show push notifications and email marketing campaigns, but they do it mostly for players who were active during the last 7 days. That's mostly the players they reach. And we mostly, not always, but mostly reach players who are inactive for 7 days or more. And that's why we usually don't collide. Our activities don't collide each other, but it's very important. We see that, and that's also free. We pay one time, but every push is free, unlike any impression. So we see that it gets players in pretty high rates to come back to the game daily. But in the retargeting activity, we are there for those who did not come back with the push notifications, those who maybe disabled push notifications and don't want to see any pushes. So we're there to really target players that push notifications did not help to re-engage to the game.
Very last question, very last minute as well. So do you compare against placebo ads to measure incremental lift? It's a little bit the methodology that you apply for your uplift measurement. Yeah.
So
which methodology do you apply to your uplift measurement in-house? Would be a intent to treat, placebo ads?
So we actually, it's not placebo ads, we actually segment our audience to 2 groups, sometimes 3. And for one group, we are able to show one message. For another group, we're able to show, but not placebo, but to show them a different message for different ad. And we have a group which we don't touch. They will not see any of our ads. So then we actually, over time, we see the performance of each group, and we can compare in our dashboard. This is benchmark group, those who didn't see anything against those who did see our ads. So, that's how we use it mostly, if I understood correctly.
Yes, perfect. Mor, I think we would need another session to to explain a little bit more about uplift measurement in case, right? So I think I think that was all. We are into time. Thank you so much for being our guest today and for this opportunity to be at this conference.
Sure, thank you for having me. It was lovely, and I hope to see you again soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to both of you, Valeria and Mor. That was great.